Let's get the latest on the Israel-Hamas war, and for that we bring in Dr. Alon Burstein. As always, Alon, good to see you. Let's get straight into it. Yesterday, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant did something extraordinary. He criticized the Israeli government. He warned in a dramatic speech that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's inaction on a post-war plan for Gaza is pushing Israel toward having to impose military and civilian rule over the enclave. Alone, we're used to outside actors discussing this type of concern, but did we feel this sentiment percolating within Israel's own top ranks at all, or did we just kind of see this come out of nowhere?
So it's always good to see you. It's not surprising that this comes from Yoav Gallant. Possibly the timing is somewhat surprising. Yoav Gallant, the Minister of Defense, has been to some extent a voice of, I won't necessarily say reason, everyone can be reasonable or not reasonable, but he's been a voice of trying to come up with a strategy and trying to come up with a tangible tactic from really day one in the war. Unlike a lot of the different actors in cabinet, he is not the leader of a party. He does not appear, at least, to have a lot of political aspirations of his own. Obviously, he might later on, but as it stands right now, he mostly is a general. He was a candidate for a chief of staff at one point. He sees himself as committed to security, as committed to defense. And from the beginning, he was saying we need a plan, we need an exit strategy, pretty much learning from the mistakes of the United States in Afghanistan and Iraq, saying we need to know what we're doing. However, due to the political circumstances in Israel's government between Netanyahu and the more hawkish elements, Smotrich and Ben Gvir, and then the more center elements of Benny Gantz, Netanyahu is trying to not make a decision. He's trying to constantly say Israel's not going to impose an active occupation. It's not going to have a military government that governs the Gazan lives. That will also get Netanyahu in trouble with the United States. In turn, he's also not saying that Israel is going to withdraw from Gaza and hand it over to someone else, because that will lead his government to fall with Smotrich and Ben Gvir. So he is trying to come up with this middle ground. He came up with a day after plan that was published at the end of January. The entire plan was just over a page long, was not a detailed plan. And the only thing it said about the future of the Gaza Strip, it had immediate plans. The only thing it said about the future of the Gaza Strip is that Israel rejects the imposing of a Palestinian state by external actors. It did not say what actually would happen. So Netanyahu's been trying to walk this line, and admittedly has done it fairly successfully for 7 months already. I think what Yoav Gallant is seeing and what he's responding to is what is happening in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, where the IDF has had to, by now, 3 times reinvade the areas of Zaytun, twice reinvade the areas of Jabalia refugee camp. The IDF is losing soldiers, going back and fighting again and again in areas that had already, quote-unquote, cleared out of Hamas operatives, because there's complete power vacuum. There is actually no plan put in place. I think Yoav Gallant sees this, and then he sees Israel's invasion of Rafah, and he's seeing the exact same thing. The invasion of Rafah, presuming that it will happen, is going to be costly. It's going to be costly to Israel in terms of its international standing, in terms of collision with the United States, in terms of losing soldiers. It's going to be costly. And I think he's saying, okay, if we don't have a plan in place, all that's going to end up happening is the IDF is de facto going to have to be the one that is controlling the situation later on. And he was very explicit. He said, I will not be party to this government if that happens. And that's a very big threat within the internal politics of Israel, specifically coming from Yoav Gallant at this point. So it remains to be seen how Netanyahu is going to try to figure it out.
So the main point of contention, it seems, between Gallant and Netanyahu is whether the Palestinian Authority is Israel's partner or whether it's an enemy in setting a new course for Gaza. Alone, has the PA itself given any clarity as to how it would want to associate with the Israelis in a post-war scenario?
The Palestinian Authority, a little bit like Netanyahu, I've often said that everyone is operating based upon internal politics. Palestinian Authority is also caught between different factions. On the one hand, Palestinian Authority is actually a rival of Hamas. They are not partners with Hamas. Specifically, the chairman of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, has his entire life said that violence has only brought Palestinians to a worse place, on the one hand. On the other hand, there are many elements within the Palestinian society and within the Palestinian Liberation Organization and the Palestinian Authority who do support violent actions against Israel. And as a result, the Palestinian Authority, like Netanyahu, is caught between, on the one hand, not being happy with what Hamas is doing, On the other hand, also having difficulty actually condemning it, because if they do, then they'll fall into internal political problems. The Palestinian Authority is very weak already in the West Bank. And one of the things that they said from the outset, because from the beginning of the war, when Israel did not present a plan, the United States started to say, well, clearly the Palestinian Authority is going to have to come in and retake control. The Palestinian Authority said they're going to do that with some conditions. They said they are willing to take control of the Gaza Strip. They're not willing to do that as simply an agent of Israel. They're not willing to say, now that Israel has taken over the Gaza Strip, the Palestinian Authority is going to be a puppet regime. Israel, according to Netanyahu and his vision, is still going to carry out all security measures that they want to carry on the Gaza Strip. The Palestinian Authority will just take care of civilian matters. The Palestinian Authority said very openly, they are only willing to take control of the Gaza Strip if this is part of an irreversible plan that leads towards a Palestinian state. They're not willing to take control of the Gaza Strip so long as it is under Israeli occupation. That is, they don't want this middle ground, which is essentially what they have in the West Bank. They don't want this middle ground. They're willing to take the Gaza Strip only if it is part of a larger plan. Something that I'll also add that is crucial. In February, there were negotiations between Hamas and the Palestinian Liberation Organization, which is the main actor within the Palestinian Authority, under the auspices of Russia. There was an attempt to create a coalition government and to bring the sides together. And I was quite surprised that the Palestinian Authority was still adamant. And they said, Hamas is welcome to join the Palestinian Liberation Organization only if it lives up to the conditions that the PLO has said has always been the conditions. They will not accept Hamas to be part of the government unless Hamas actually recognizes the past treaties between Israel and the Palestinians, which is a demand of Israel, and it's a demand of the United States. But if the Palestinian Authority still held their ground, still said, we're not going to cooperate with Hamas unless they're willing to accept that we've signed treaties with Israel and that there is a framework for negotiations, I saw as a good sign, and possibly is the Palestinian Authority signaling they'd still like to be an actor, they'd like to be a partner for Israel, but only within this framework towards statehood.
How has Netanyahu replied to this criticism?
So Gallant did not explicitly say that he's calling for the Palestinian Authority. It's very obvious what he's talking about. He said that there have to be Palestinian actors that are not Hamas that will take control. But he did not explicitly call for the Palestinian Authority. What Netanyahu did, he put out this video that we're seeing now, in which he answered it as if the call was the Palestinian Authority and simply said, I am not willing to accept the Palestinian Authority to come in to the Gaza Strip. I will not give the security, I'll not put the security of Israelis in the hands of a Palestinian element at this point. He is repeatedly saying that what he would like to see is having a regional actors come in. Egypt, Jordan, he would probably like to see Saudi Arabia as part of a deal, come in and take control of the Gaza Strip. But in Netanyahu's government, the Palestinian Authority is seen almost as a danger because the Palestinian Authority is the one that the United States, the EU, the United Nations are all saying Israel should negotiate with. If Netanyahu were to accept that the Palestinian Authority were to come into the Gaza Strip, then that is the pathway towards a Palestinian state. So in Netanyahu's vision, the Palestinian Authority not only is not a credible ally when it comes to fighting terrorism, it's also a political danger. And thus, Netanyahu immediately put out this video that said, absolutely, the Palestinian Authority is not going to be the actor, is not the answer, it's the problem, it's not the solution. Other members within his government also immediately called for Gallant to be fired. The responses are extreme, for Gallant to be fired, for Netanyahu to publicly chastise him. Netanyahu is in a bind, though, because Netanyahu tried to fire Gallant a year ago, long before the war, when there was a whole judicial overhaul going on in Israel. He tried to fire Gallant because Gallant was warning that this is going to cause a security problem. And the country came as closest to rebellion that it's ever come. Overnight, 600 to 700,000 people took to the streets and basically forced Netanyahu to not do that. So even though I think probably in his heart of hearts Netanyahu may want to fire Gallant, it would be very risky at this point. The last time he did that, he lost a lot of credibility in the country. I doubt that he'd be willing to do that again right now.
Has anybody ever challenged Netanyahu like this?
Not from within the Likud for a long time. Netanyahu has been the head of the Likud since 2009. He was the head, or actually earlier. He was in opposition since 2006. He was the head of the Likud before that also, but then in 1999 he resigned after he lost the elections to Ehud Barak. In the Likud in general, it is not very common to challenge the leader, as opposed to a lot of other political parties in Israel. Labor, Meretz, there's a lot of parties where you have a lot of internal challenge. The Likud historically, there have been very few challenges, and Netanyahu himself has been very, very good at pushing aside possible challengers from within the Likud. So he's relatively unchallenged. Something that's also important to note, though, is that Gallant, again, at least on the face of it, does not appear to be challenging Netanyahu for Likud leadership. There are a lot of actors within the Likud, Foreign Minister Israel Katz, Israel's ambassador to the UN, Gilad Erdan, are all names that people have said are waiting for Netanyahu to possibly resign, possibly something, in order to take over the Likud. Gallant does not appear to be playing towards the Likud hardliners. On the contrary, what he said now is highly unpopular within the Likud. So I think that he really does just see himself as on a mission for security, not for actually challenging Netanyahu's leadership. And I think that he realizes, as Minister of Defense, he is going to be the one who people are going to say, what were you thinking when you didn't have a plan for going on Gaza? So he wanted to go on record publicly saying, I am begging for a plan. I am constantly asking cabinet, let's talk about this. And I am not the reason why that's not happening.
Let's move on to the aid pier in Gaza. It's another huge development overnight. The U.S. military finished installing the pier on Thursday, with officials poised to begin ferrying humanitarian aid into the enclave after over 7 months of intense fighting in Gaza. Two questions here, Alon. Do we know how soon aid will start flowing in? And my understanding is that this will allow for robust amounts of aid to come into Gaza. How much more aid do we expect to flow in through this pier compared to, say, an airdrop?
So, with regards to when aid is going to start flowing in, that depends on a large variety of actors and also on weather and weather conditions at sea. So it's not 100% clear. The way this is going to work, there's a lot of actors involved. What we have here is, under the auspices of the United States, the pier has been constructed. Then the United Arab Emirates are the main actor that is funding the aid. The aid is going to get to Cyprus, which is a member of the EU. There it is going to be inspected either by Israeli agents or by agents that Israel appoints. Then it is going to ferry over to the shores of Gaza, where it is going to be received by the World Food Program of the United Nations and be protected by the IDF. That means that all those actors have to be in coordination. And if one of them, all of a sudden, there's a challenge, there's a problem, there's a hiccup, there's a bureaucratic thing, it's going to lead to holdups. So they're expecting the aid to start to flow any day, and the entire time of sailing from Cyprus to Gaza can be less than 2 days. They're expecting the aid to flow any day, but it remains to be seen actually when it starts. I will say that it's coming at a very crucial time. The fact that Israel took over the Rafah crossing, in response, Egypt has closed the Rafah crossing, and Egypt is refusing to open it. Israel has been trying to negotiate with Egypt to open the Rafah crossing in order to allow aid to flow in, and Egypt is repeatedly saying they're not willing to have Israel control that side of the border, has meant that there has been a substantial decrease in the entrance of humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip in the last week. So this is coming at a pretty crucial time. In terms of how much aid is going to flow in, I don't know specific numbers, but it's going to be abundantly more than aid paradropping. Paradropping missions is by far the worst way of letting aid come into the strip. A lot of the paradropping missions, the aid flow drops in different areas that don't need aid as much, or even drops at sea. What is going to be critical, and again, this is going to allow tons of aid to flow into the Gaza Strip directly. What is still going to be critical, however, is the distribution within the Gaza Strip. That has been the main challenge. The World Food Program is now going to be the one taking over. It was going to be the World Central Kitchen after the incident with the World Central Kitchen. It's now the World Food Program. Nonetheless, the IDF is securing the beach. Once it goes out in the aid trucks of the World Food Program, it has to ferry through ongoing fighting between the IDF and Hamas looting, and Palestinian looting, and ongoing war zones. How the smoothness of that is really going to be what makes or breaks. Does this aid actually help the situation in the Gaza Strip? Or is it, again, like we've seen, lots of aid ready to come in, does not actually get to the civilians at the end of the day?
One more thing I got to hit here just before we go. So no doubt you've seen this. We have to ask you about it. And another dramatic campus showdown. The LA Times reports that hundreds of police officers in riot gear descended on a Gaza war protest encampment at UC Irvine in an hours-long siege that led to dozens of arrests. Right now, you're looking at video from yesterday. University officials have said that they took action after a contingent of demonstrators briefly occupied and barricaded a nearby university building on Wednesday, escalating a protest that had been tolerated by officials for weeks, according to the LA Times. This one is obviously close to home for you, Alon, as you're currently a visiting professor at the school. Did you feel the tension bubbling up at the school in recent weeks, and were classes impacted?
So, yes, it is close to home. Tension has been bubbling up as much as it has been in lots of campuses. UCI has actually been relatively calm compared to some of the campuses that we've seen, specifically in Southern California, but also elsewhere in Colombia and things like that. UCI has been relatively calm. The encampment has been largely peaceful. There have been, protests and demonstrators, counter demonstrators, but we haven't seen the escalations that we've seen in other campuses. Unfortunately, and now I'm, talking to you also from someone who studies social movements and social mobilization. Unfortunately, what tends to happen when a protest is trying to make a point, protests are trying to get in your face. That is the point of protests. If protests are not being noticed, they're not doing their job. So when protests become routine, and that is essentially what happened in UCI and has happened elsewhere, where the encampments just become routine and people are just walking around them, usually that leads to an escalation. It leads to something. It doesn't have to be occupying a building, it doesn't have to be violence, but it leads to something so that they get attention, just like we saw here. In terms of what actually happened, protesters barricaded themselves in a building, the police being called in. I was telling you before we got on the air that I was told, at least, I was on campus, and I heard 2 helicopters circling the campus. I was told by people on the ground there were at least 5. In terms of the escalation that happened, I've heard wildly different reports. I was not there at the building. I've heard reports that indeed people barricaded themselves and the police were breaking in and it was very violent. I've also heard reports from students who have said that the entire barricade was blocking off one entrance and the building has another entrance on the side. And it was very, very symbolic, and they did not think that the police would respond in this way. So I don't actually know exactly what happened. I've seen the videos like you have seen. Classes were impacted in the sense that when this started, they immediately announced that classes were going to go online. So today I taught my class, ironically, on the history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict from my backyard, teaching online. As it stands right now, the encampment, according to reports, has been dismantled and classes are due to resume on Friday. We will see where things develop.
Good to hear that class is back in session. We'll leave it there for now, Alon. As always, we look forward to your daily YouTube uploads as well. Take care. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night.